Well, happy Resurrection Day. Finally. If you've been hanging out with us, it's been a long week. We started with grappling on Palm Sunday with the fact that Jesus was a bit more of a political figure than we like to talk about sometimes in church. And then we moved into Maundy Thursday, where we dealt with not just the gift of the Last Supper, but also betrayal. And then we move into Good Friday, where we struggled together to make sense out of the arrest and the torture and the execution of Jesus. And so finally, we get here, and this is the good news. It's good news to remember that death does not get the final word, that oppression and domination ultimately never win, that love and forgiveness and life, always life, have the last word. Eventually, the story of this day spreads and Christianity is born, right? Not exactly, if you listen to Mark. Because as this story tells us, the women who have this experience of this strange man in an empty tomb telling them to go to Galilee, they don't tell anybody. And if we had pew Bibles and I asked you to open, you would notice that there are actually 11 more verses after this story in Mark. But we are pretty sure, Scripture scholars agree, that those 11 verses were added later because the discomfort of Mark ending his gospel with no one ever telling the story made people so uncomfortable they went back and fixed the ending. But it's not the ending Mark gives us. And again, Mark's the first gospel. He's the closest to the event of all of the gospel writers. And he tells us that this is the end. They don't tell anyone. Now, I have to tell you that as awkward as this ending is, personally, I love it. Now, it's not just because I like awkward things, which you may have figured out if you've been here through Holy Week, but I think this is the most amazing way to look at this story. Because what happens is Mark makes it very clear to us that the good news definitely does not end at the tomb, and that actually everything goes back to where it began. The beautiful good news of this story, and we know that this happens eventually, is Jesus says to them through the man in the tomb, "Go to Galilee, I will already be there." Go to Galilee. Galilee, the place where the whole gospel story starts, where most, if not all, of the disciples likely lived, the place where they were casting nets when they were called into discipleship. Go back there. Go home. And when you go home, I will already be there. And I think when we talk about the resurrection story, there's a lot of things about it that we have trouble, we grapple with, and we wrestle with. But this part, my friends, I think is undeniable. The promise of this story in the Gospel of Mark is that Jesus goes ahead of us, always. And so it doesn't matter what we're facing, right? When we leave here and we go back to our homes and we have a sink full of dirty dishes and we have children and grandchildren high on chocolate and sugar, and we're tired, and we have family that we love, and then, sometimes they should just go home, right? That God goes before us. Jesus is already there. That no matter what our days unfold like from this point forward, whether we walk into moments of absolute joy like birthdays and anniversaries, or we walk into the pain of a hospital room or a funeral home, or a counselor's office, that it does not matter where we go because Jesus is already there waiting for us. This is a God who, incarnate, right, wanted to be so much a part of us. Still, this God, resurrected, no longer here physically, still will not let us go. This is the God of Easter. This is the God who says, you can do what you want, and it doesn't matter. I will be there. I mean, think about these disciples. These men, they follow Jesus, they serve with Jesus, they go to Jerusalem with Jesus, and then they bolt. When it gets a little scary, they abandon him. So we like to give all the credit, I do sometimes, to the women, right? Because they serve with Jesus, they follow him to Jerusalem, and they hang out, they witness the execution. They witness the burial. They witness the resurrection. But in Mark's gospel, they blow it too. They don't tell anybody. And this is good news because, again, it doesn't matter. We're going to get it wrong. We're going to fail. We're going to fall down. We're going to not always do the thing that we feel we know we should do. We just get too scared. We just get too busy. We're just too human. Okay, and guess what? Jesus says, and I'm still here. The invitation is still for all of us. I will meet you where you live. And so, my friends, be clear and be certain that this day, if nothing else rings true for you about a resurrection, let it be this: that there is nowhere to hide from this God. There is nowhere that we can go that God isn't already there waiting for us with arms open wide, offering us love and forgiveness and a newness of life that we can't even begin to imagine. This is the God who says, I've come that you may have life and that you may have it abundantly. This is the God of Easter. Let us rejoice and be glad.